All right. You know what it is. You know who it is. We're back. Episode 37 of the Fight Cast. Got a lot of stuff that went down this past weekend. A couple good fights in the UFC. Well, the main fight in the UFC was pretty good. Got it wrong again. Just I got a curse right now. Then we also had boxing. We had a nice upset in our eyes, at least, and we'll break that down. Then we got some good fights, good fight in the UFC coming up this weekend, and then we have, the Paul versus Woodley fight, which we'll figure out a way to talk about in one way or another. But so right now, UFC, we had Gastelum versus Cannonier. It was a great fight, honestly. It was a really good fight from start to finish. Cannonier walked away with it towards the end. And I think that he did a lot during the fight that I was not expecting, because I've seen him fight a couple times, and the times that I have seen him fight, he was very much stagnant and kind of like didn't throw a lot. And, even this fight, he got caught, or he got put in some positions where he wasn't throwing a ton. And Gastelum, I don't know. I've seen him obviously at his peak. And I think his peak was definitely Izzy. When he fought Izzy, that was a war. And he almost beat Izzy. And he was the closest I think anybody's gotten to beating Izzy. And I don't count Blachowicz, because I think Blachowicz was a mismatch from the start. But anyways, every fight since then, Gastelum's kind of like, even the fights he's won, he's shown flashes of greatness, but he doesn't do enough. And not even to like, because, I work with the guy, but like, he worked with Phil in the last fight that he won, I believe. And that was against Heinisch. And he looked great. And physically, he looked great. He moved well. He was strong. And from what I've seen the last 3 fights, and he hasn't worked with Phil, I think he's kind of changed things up. His body doesn't look the same. His movement doesn't look the same. And he's becoming this dude that they're saying every single fight, Gastelum's tough. He's a tough guy. He's got a chin. Like the thing that Jake always says, like when you start getting talked about how tough you are, you're not in a good spot. And that's continuously what happens with him. He just gets hit a lot. He doesn't move his head. And he looks to have spurts of greatness that he gets, that get lost in like his clumsiness on defense. And I don't know exactly how else to describe it. But Cannonier looked really good. Gastelum has a chin. He got dropped basically 3 times. But towards the end of that fight, it was, I think going into the 4th, it was 3-1. And then into the 5th, it was 3-1. Into the 4th, I think that it was getting, handily. And I think that the live odds even showed it that like, Gastelum was like heading towards the plus 400s to win that fight. And Cannonier was like creeping up towards the minus 300s for live odds. And I think that was the tail of the fight. It was, Cannonier was doing everything that he needed to. He was landing his punches, even though he did get caught a couple times. And he's kind of in that same boat. Like I said, he gets caught in these like lack of defensive skills, and he just kind of like leaves his head out after he throws punches, and had a couple, situations that he got out of that really could have been bad, where Gastelum would, I think Gastelum stunned him on I want to say it was a right hook, because he kept throwing this little like slap check hook, and he kept catching him, and he caught him, and he turned his back, and then Gastelum got his back and then like let go for some reason, didn't even go for a takedown. And Cannonier like took 2 steps forward without even facing Gastelum, which was like an ugly sequence in general. And it could have really led to something bad, because Gastelum, I don't know what Gastelum was doing either, but like could have caught him, could have kicked him, could have punched him when he wasn't looking. So not really sure what he was doing there. But I think with this win, there's a couple things that happened. Cannonier definitely put himself up there. And I think, again, Izzy has talked about fighting Cannonier in the past, but there's a couple guys that are now like coming up that I think that Cannonier did this too late to get in with Izzy. One, Darren Till's fighting in 2 weeks, and I think he's going to beat Brunson. And I think once he beats Brunson, his name automatically goes to number 1. And then, Izzy's going to fight Till. And then I think what will happen is, Cannonier's name will be in there for maybe 1 or 2 more fights down the line. That's looking like probably early to middle of next year. And, I don't know that. And Cannonier's 37 right now, going on 38. I don't know when his birthday is exactly, but that's a very high age to be fighting someone like Izzy. And with his kind of stagnation, he's not very sharp. I don't think Izzy is the best fight for him. I think it would be cool to see a different name and a different style, because he looked really good physically. Like, he looked in shape. Some of the best I've seen him look in shape, and he did everything he needed to do. Now, on Gastelum's end, I think that, and I said last week when I talked about Gastelum, that he's kind of turned into somebody who's since that Izzy fight, he's been right on the border of being good, but not great. And I think with this fight, this kind of proves that he had his moments, but when someone's on, he's just not, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have enough. He doesn't have the intangibles. He doesn't have the skill. He doesn't have the wrestling, whatever he needs. He just doesn't seem to have it. He's good at everything, but he's not great. And I think this kind of puts Gastelum in a gatekeeper phase now. I really think, I don't think he's going to get another title shot, because I really think that with that loss, he's too far out now. He'd have to do too much to get back. And I don't think the guys that, after losing to Whitaker, after losing to Cannonier, those guys, Izzy's about to fight Whitaker, and then he's going to fight Till, and then I think he's going to fight Cannonier. So, and that's if everything goes perfect. But I think Gastelum's kind of at that phase now where he's just a name in the division that people are going to fight to try to get to Izzy, because he was, the hardest fight Izzy had. He's on Izzy's resume. Gastelum has a resume. He's beat a lot of people. So, I think that he's now stepping into that role of a name in the division that you have to beat to get to Izzy, and people continue to do it. So I like Gastelum as a fighter. I think 3 fights ago, he looked really good. And then, like I said, over the last few fights, it's just been kind of a slow dive down. And each fight, he's looked physically a little bit worse, which was the thing that's you could see going into the fight. There's nothing against his overall skill, because I think he's, like I said, a great fighter. I think he's just a little bit past his prime, and physically he's just not putting in the work that he needs to be to stay there. But yeah, so like I said, I think it was a really good fight. I think Cannonier is next in line for Izzy, and I just don't know when that's going to be, because I think Izzy's got other people ahead of Cannonier that deserve to be ahead of Cannonier, and we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward, like I said last week, Darren Till's fighting, I think in 2 weeks, I believe. And 2 weeks. So September 4th, that's going to be a banger, and I'm excited. And I think that's going to tell a lot as to where Izzy goes in the future. So this weekend, we got Edson Barbosa versus Gija Chikadze. Chikadze's up and coming. He's really good. He's 13-2. Barbosa's 22-9, and he's 35, but he has looked really good in his last couple fights. And I think that the last fight really sealed the deal, just looking at this fight overall. Barbosa looked so good in his last fight. He was sharp. His kicks were phenomenal. His punches were sharp. He looked physically just strong. And I think that he's really, right now, I think he's coming into this little second wave. I don't think he's ever going to fight for the belt, but I think right now, he's getting pushed into kind of what I just talked about with Gastelum, this gatekeeper-ish role in this division. But I think that just how he's been fighting in the last few weeks, or the last few fights, that he has what it takes. And he used to fight in the lightweight, which was 155, and he went down in weight, which you usually don't see towards the end of your career. It's the same thing with Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo wasn't a featherweight, and he went down to bantamweight as 135. And you usually don't you just usually don't see that as guys age. Usually it's the opposite, where they were a 155, then they get into 170, and then they, if they make it that long, it's fast or heavier than that. But Barbosa, he's got all the skills. He's looking physically better. And each fight, like I said, the last 2 fights, he's looked really good. This last fight especially, he was just on point. And I think what's going to happen here is I think he's going to overwhelm however you say this guy's name, Giga Chikadze. And I think he's going to use his kicks because that's what Barbosa is known for. He's got some of the filthiest and hardest kicks in the UFC. And I think he's just going to overwhelm him. I think he's got a gas tank physically. So saying that, he's probably going to get knocked out in the second round. But I think he's going to win. I think he's going to win handily. I think it'll be a decision. I think it'll be a 5-round decision. And I think he's going to bring himself up into the division again. In terms of, I don't think he'll ever get a title shot, but I think he'll be in a couple bigger fights moving down the line. He's only 35, which is kind of old, and he's been around for a little bit, but I still think he's got everything moving forward, and I think he's going to handily win this fight. So I'm going to go with Edson Barbosa, unanimous decision, 5-round fight. And and then on top of that, I haven't really watched any of it this year, but The Ultimate Fighter, I guess they're finishing that on the night of the fight, and they're going to be crowning that as well. So if you have watched that, and check that out. I think it's Brian Battle versus Gilbert Urbina, and I think it'll be probably be fun to watch. I'll watch it, see how it goes. Maybe I'll check out The Ultimate Fighter beforehand if I can. But so Edson Barbosa, unanimous decision. And I think that's it for the UFC. I don't think there's no, it's not. So MMA news, I guess. If you don't know the PFL, so the PFL is called the Professional Fighting League, I believe. It's MMA. It's a new promotion that's out that's trying to like change things up a little bit. I like the ideas. I don't know that they'll be around that long because they're handing out like heavy purses and like $1 million fights each time that I don't know. I guess being a new promotion, I don't know if they have the money or they got somebody who's got the money, but they have some good talent on there, and they've gotten some good fighters to go on there and fight. Rory McDonald was one of them. And anyways, but Kayla Harrison, if you haven't heard of this girl, she's a beast. She's basically running through the PFL. You know, I don't know that I think she's too good for the PFL. She's kind of like a Ronda Rousey on steroids. She's a judo champion, like 2-time gold Olympic judo champion. I believe I don't know her belt. I don't want to say her belt, but I believe she's a pretty high rank jiu-jitsu girl with some wrestling background as well. Or it might be vice versa. It might be wrestling background with some jiu-jitsu. But she's head and heels best in that division in the PFL. And she won again on Thursday night, I believe the PFL was. And the PFL, what they're essentially known for is they have this system of like a playoff for fighting. So essentially there's like a regular season and then they go into a playoffs for the fighting based off like points, which I don't really know how that works because there's a lot that can go wrong within fighting. So
it's the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Yeah. Have you ever like actually looked into it?
No, but it's the dumbest thing I ever heard because like styles make fights. Like so it's not like team sports where it's like, oh, you know, this team beat this team, they move on and then they beat this team. Like it's different with fighting. Like someone who loses in the first round might beat whoever wins the champion. It's a dumb idea for fighting.
Yeah. So whatever they're doing, I don't know. But Kayla Harrison's making a name for herself. She looks good. And I honestly believe that she would give Amanda Nunes a run for her money. I hope that happens. I think she needs to leave the PFL. And I think the UFC, if they're smart, would try to make that happen as soon as possible because she's doing everything right. She's got the skills. She's
getting paid millions of dollars there. Why would she go to UFC to make 20,000?
Yeah, I guess you're right. I don't know.
If she's running through everyone and she's a champion and she's getting paid more money, why would you go to the UFC?
Yeah, I guess at that point it's up to her at competition level, but you're right. Like why?
Yeah.
But she's got everything she needs to be there. I just want to see her fight Nunes and Shevchenko because I think that'd be fucking awesome. But yeah, so she's been crushing it. And even Khabib was saying she's crazy good. She's got everything you want in a fighter. And I'm excited to see her grow and see her continue to fight. And just I hope I hope the UFC will pay her. That's all. Because I want to see her.
What would be cool is if MMA, if the organizations sort of form like boxing.
Well, the thing is
you'd have the UFC belt, the PFL belt, the Bellator belt. You know what I mean?
Well, they should, and like they've talked about it because Bellator has a bunch of guys that are pretty good, but AJ McKee was the one, like the last one who just kind of said this. He doesn't want to go to the UFC, and I don't know specifics. It's probably because of money. and he called out Max Holloway. He wants to fight Max Holloway, and he was like, "I'd love to fight Max Holloway for like that type of belt, like a championship belt of like cross promotion." And I think that's on the horizon. I think the only reason really that they wouldn't is just because of how, in my eyes, how big of a difference UFC has right now in terms of like the audience of fighting. But I think if PFL and Bellator can keep the guys that they have that are coming up, like the Kayla Harrisons, and Bellator can continue to get people from the UFC to come over, or they still have, now they have Yoel Romero, they have Pitbull, they have AJ McKee, like these up and coming stars, where it can really start to make sense to say, hey, listen, Kayla Harrison's running through everybody in the PFL, and she's the winner. Like, who wants to fight her for the PFL belt? Or she goes and take whatever, like you said, however they do it in boxing, and then unify the belts. That'd be sick to see a triple champ unify the belts in all three divisions in all three promotions at that division. That's definitely a cool idea.
Obviously. Yeah, it'd be cool. Then you have undisputed MMA fighters instead of an undisputed UFC champ.
And I'm sure that if that happened, that would have to change things up financially, right? Like in terms of.
Well, yeah. I mean, what you would end up doing is, because basically the organization would then be the promoter.
Yeah.
Right. So in boxing, you have the organizations that have the belts, and they have their own ranking system and all that, and they have a roster of fighters. And then you have the individual promoters who promote these fighters.
Yeah.
Whereas in MMA, it would be like, okay, UFC is an organization with a belt and their own ranking system, but they're also promoting this fighter that's on the roster. So they would have to, just like boxers, two promoters get together, they work out a deal based on the fighter, the money they bring in, who's going to get what end, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And obviously, so UFC has the bigger audience, so they probably have more leverage in a deal like this. But if an organization like Bellator is like, well, this is what we pay our fighters, and you're going to have to, come meet us toward the middle with the purse for the fighter. And that seems like where there would be a problem, because UFC obviously has a business structure that has worked for them.
Yeah.
They've become a multi-billion-dollar company, but they become that way by shitting on their fighters.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I think that would be interesting, and I didn't even think about it, because I don't know. I didn't ever think about that. It's kind of like boxing regardless, but there might be a smart thing for the fighters to push, but we'll see. But anyways, I hope it happens, because I'd love to see some cross promotion fights, and then really kind of show, because like there's always been that argument. It's like, are the UFC guys better than the Bellator guys, or like really, like how big of a difference is there in that division or in the promotions? And then the PFL coming up, there's always these other little promotions as well. It'd be really cool to kind of see. But that's it for the UFC this week. No other big news, I don't think, moving forward. Anthony Smith and Ryan Spann got announced for September 18th. And then next big fight we got, like pay-per-view, is Volkanovski versus Ortega, and then Valentina Shevchenko versus Lauren Murphy, along with the comeback of Nick Diaz, along with Robbie Lawler. So, boxing.
Well, there was the only fight I picked last weekend, which I got wrong, was the Pacquiao Ugas fight. And there's really not much to say. I mean, we hadn't seen Pacquiao in 2 years, or almost 2 years, or a little over 2 years. I mean, and that 2 years, it seemed like 5 years. When
he looked old.
Yeah, he lost his balance a few times, which is something you never see Manny do. Because I'll be honest, I found this. I haven't sparred in like a year and a half, and I sparred one of my clients the other day, just like light stuff, and I could see the guy's punches coming a mile away, but physically my reflexes aren't there. I couldn't get out of the way, and I was getting caught with like dumb shit.
Yeah,
and that's just age. There's nothing you can do about it. Like, you could see Pacquiao that he's doing the right things, that his mind is there, but his body's not doing what he's telling it to do. And it was unfortunate, because I mean, otherwise we saw the same old Manny.
Yeah,
he's moving in and out nice, but then there came a time where like he would move in, and then it would be like 2-3 seconds too late for him to move out.
Yeah.
And then there were a couple of times where he was moving out and he had to like hop on one leg to regain his balance, which we never see. Because Because I'll be honest, man, Ugas is like now Ugas is calling out Spence and Ugas is not good.
Yeah.
He's a slow fighter. He's a very one of these guys that you hear me say like he's a vanilla fighter. He's got not a whole lot of variety to his game. Decent. I mean, he's a tough guy. He looks like he can hit kind of hard. He's got a nice stiff jab, but he's a vanilla fighter. And I think it just came down to Manny's age. I think age has caught up to him. Because Manny's legs, like along with his punching power and his speed, but I mean, let's be honest, with his punching power and speed, the way that it's always been, but with his arms being so short, he would not be at where he's at without his legs, without being able to move his feet the way he does. He wouldn't be able to get in and out because he's got such short arms. So without his legs, he's just not Manny. And it just looks like his legs are gone.
Yeah, I thought he looked old, and then he kept getting hit with like the right hand, and he was just like, it was just like he kept leaving his, like he'd step away, and I almost feel like maybe it was that, like because I did notice the balance thing, but like he just kind of like maybe he thought he was farther out than he was each time, because it just looked like it was something where he's like, all right, I got in, I'm getting out, but then like every time he got out, he was like right in distance with the right hand.
Yeah, dude, listen, that's one of those things, man. Like, I'm telling you, it's just the age thing. It's like Manny's whole thing is move in, land 8, 9, 10 shots, move out. The guy takes a step, you take another step back, then you step back in. And he was going in, landing his shots, and then stepping out, and then getting hit, and then getting hit again, and then stepping back. It was just one of those things that I attribute it to age, because I feel it now, and I felt it like the past couple of years, like sparring, not having been competitive.
Yeah.
The things that I used to do, the way that I used to move my feet, and then getting in there, and it's like, I don't think this guy can hurt me, and I don't really have it in me to move my feet again.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna take this hit.
Yeah.
I think it's age, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like that kind of gives you, it sucks, kind of gives you a little bit of insight of probably what would have happened had he fought Spence. And I think that Spence would have probably, at that point, the way he looked, Spence probably would have dropped him at some point.
Yeah, Spence is a lot smarter, a lot more technical, and a lot stronger than he was.
So I think that I hope, let me say this. I don't think Pacquiao will. I hope he kind of hangs it up soon. I think there's too many big money fights for him out there that I don't think he's that type of fighter, but I think his cause and what he wants will drag him into some of these other money fights. Like I still, see him fighting Conor at some point. I still see him fighting like those types of fights, maybe 1 or 2 just for the money.
I mean, at some point, this shit's got to stop. Like, people got to stop paying for this shit. I mean, who the fuck wants to see Manny Pacquiao and Conor McGregor box?
Yeah,
I mean,
know.
how is that even a thing?
I don't know.
McGregor can't fight in his own fucking discipline right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's so bad that he's going in there and getting like rocked in the first 30 seconds of a fight in his field.
Yeah.
Guy's got no business putting the boxing gloves on.
Yeah.
And Manny Pacquiao, look at he's old. Yeah. He's old.
Well, that's why I just don't see Pacquiao obviously no longer can compete at like the highest level, which is, it's fine because he's old. He's 47, right?
42.
Or 42. Sorry. So 42. So like he's getting there.
He's fighting since he was like 16.
Miles. It's miles and miles and miles. This is a fucking 30-year-old car with peak mileage on a fucking engine.
The guy's been in some fucking wars.
Yeah.
Some real wars.
He's one of the best boxers of all time. And like Jake said, you can see it. Like his style just doesn't translate to age because of how small he is. And you need that quickness in and out. He's still like, and you could see it. Like when he stepped on the gas a little bit, you could see the combos. You could see the hands flying.
Hand speed is still there.
They just weren't effective.
Power is still there because you could see a couple of those shots that landed. Ugas snapped his head back.
Yeah.
Just legs are gone.
Yeah. So I think that, moving forward, Ugas, like Jake said, I think he's going to have his fight. He's going to get his fight probably. But I think Spence is going to wash the dude. And then whatever happens from there, he's just going to go back into. So he better enjoy it. That's all. Better enjoy it for the time being. Then I think I don't know if there's any other fights that night, right? That was the only one you picked.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't pick any. Victor Ortiz and Robert Guerrero fought to I don't know, a shit show. Guerrero won the fight, but I mean, like, it was just like these are guys who have been in the ring like in the last few years, and even they looked like they just shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And like, you know, now in a few weeks we got Oscar De La Hoya boxing. It's like this is not fighting is not for everybody. And as much as I'm pleased with the fact that boxing has become super popular in the US again, along with all fighting, it's now spilled over, like it's had a psychological effect on American fans. Like everyone thinks that they can fight now.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of it.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, even guys that used to fight who don't have it in them anymore are like, you know what? You got me all pumped up. I'm all jazzed. I'm going to go in there and fight now at 50 years old. It's no one gives a fuck.
Yeah.
You know?
It's a tough situation. I think a lot of these guys get forced into it. Like we've said multiple times, because they don't know how to spend their money, and that's the only thing they know. So it's like,
but it's not like I've said this before too. When you're a fighter, that shit, like that mentality never leaves you.
yeah,
It never leaves you again. Because again, like I'm 39 years old and I'm an adult, but I feel like I want to fight people all the time. Like I'm a kid or something, right? I mean, it's just a mentality. I want to fight all the time, but physically I can't.
Yeah.
I can't go out talking shit to people all the time now because I can't physically do it anymore.
Yeah.
So someone around these people needs to tell them, like, dude, you can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I get it. You know, it's in you. The fighter's in you, but there are other forces. Again, with a guy like McGregor, you had a hunger. You got $100 million. Hunger's gone now. You're trash. Go live your life. Oscar De La Hoya, you're 48 years old. You got no fucking business doing it. Leave the shit alone, man. Leave it alone. And again, like sometimes it's not even about money. It's just that someone mentions it, like, hey, you fought. You want to fight? Well, yeah, of course I do. Well, let's start training. And it's like no one's like, hey, yeah, I don't know, that's a bad idea. No one. Yeah. Everyone around him, that TV executives and promoters, like, yeah, because they see dollar signs.
Yeah. And
fans are sometimes just a little too overzealous with what they think they want to see.
Well, I was gonna say, of course, I think a lot of it is that too. Is like, I even talked to, one of my good friends now is Maureen Shea, and like she always talks about it because she hasn't fought in a while, and they've asked her, but there's other reasons why. But like, she's always like, her friends are always like, I want to see you fight. I want to see you fight. Like, I want to see you fight. And she's like, I get it. Like, I get it. But it's just like, at some point you got to put it away. Like, it's like, it's there. It was there. It's in the past. And like, whether you got it or not, it's like, just let it go.
You have to be aware enough of yourself to.
Well, I think and like, this will be a good segue, because I think that we can briefly touch on it, but like you kind of said before we started this, is that there's people now who are paying stupid money to see stupid fights. Yeah. And when you couple that with the fact that like social media is out there, and there's, like you said, the fighters are in fight, like the fight is in fighters. And then someone's like, hey, I'll give you X amount of dollars if you come out and fight. That's how you end up with the fucking Jake Pauls, all this shit, because you get people like Ben Askren, you get people like now Tyron Woodley, you get people like these fucking other fights on Triller or whatever. Like, none of these guys, and half of it, like you said, is like, it's people, and I think you said this before we started it, and that's why I said to save it, but like everybody thinks they can fight now. So then, and they can just know a guy who knows a guy and get on Jake Paul's card, and all you need to have is a couple thousand followers and some extra money in your back pocket, and you can get on any card that you want nowadays, instead of being like, oh, like this kid's actually good, we should have him fight, or like these kids are actually like up and coming people, we should have them fight so there's, you know, notoriety and build a name up. Instead, it's like, who's already built their name up, who's going to bring us money, and whoever they want to fight, they could fight a fucking lamp if they wanted to, and they're going to sell it.
And the thing is that a guy like Jake Paul, you know, I fully expect Woodley to knock him out. But like once Jake Paul does get knocked out, more than likely he's going to stop doing this. He's going to stop this act, this bad guy act. This, oh, I got a hit list of all these fighters, because it's not in him.
Yeah.
It's real easy to say like, yeah, I'm boxing's new. I'm the future of boxing when you're winning, and you're too stupid or too arrogant to realize that your wins don't mean anything in terms of boxing. But it's like, it's real easy to keep that going. Like, yeah, I'm a fighter. Well, because you're winning, it feels good. But once that reality hits you, like, oh, this is what fighting is, you're gone. Because the fighters, I mean, I think you obviously have to have like a deep anger and hatred, and you have to have a willingness, not even more than a willingness. You have to have a desire to participate in violence, right? On frequently, and that's part of why it stays with a fighter after they get too old. There's just something inside of them that says, I need to punch someone in the fucking face, or I need to kick someone or put someone in jail. There's just something inside some people, right? Fighting is not for everybody. And the most shameful part, the whole thing is that when a guy like Jake Paul does lose, he's just going to go back to being rich from doing whatever he was doing before.
And go bother some other sport.
And none of the fans are going to, you know, they're not going to care. They're still going to follow him doing that because they don't care about the fight. They just care about the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the problem is fans now, they can't separate the show from the actual fight.
Yeah.
And that's what sucks.
Yeah. Because
there are people that are there for the fight, they're to fight and train to fight, and they're on the undercard of the show, and they get overshadowed. That's what I got a problem with.
Yeah. And I think that, like, you know, I personally, like, and we've said this, but like Jake Paul obviously hasn't, and you can weigh this however you want. Like, I don't think he's ever been in a tough fight in his life. Like, so to say that, like,
I'd be willing to bet that he had never been in a fight before the first time he stepped in a ring to spar.
Yeah.
With one of those mailmen that they heard before he started doing this.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever been in a street fight in his life.
Well, and on top of that, it's like, even, you know, he's never struggled in life, really. He's never struggled, you know.
Little rich suburban white kid. He's got no
and
business.
Like, he got success quick. Like, he was young. He was maybe 13 when him and Logan, you know, really popped off. And they've carried it, which is good. They're smart. They're smart kids. Like, they're smart people. But to say that he's struggled at anything other than like giving himself problems in life, because, you know, he's probably never had any actual problems, to see, like, because I've never been in like a boxing, like a fight like that, I guess. So from hearing it from you, but like seeing it, and it's like, he hasn't struggled in the ring yet. Like, once. There hasn't been 1 second that he went into the ring and like questioned himself. And I think that, like, Woodley is going to make him question himself at the least. Whether Woodley wins or not, I think that Woodley is going to make Jake Paul question himself at some point in the fight.
Yeah, because here's the thing. Woodley has the ability, the skill, and the mindset to physically hurt Jake Paul.
Yeah.
And it's at that moment when you get physically hurt, when you get caught with something, if your mind is like, in your mind, you're like, yeah, hey man, I'm going to keep doing it. I'm not going to let him hurt me. I'm about to hurt him. Or you go, I don't really like doing this.
Yeah.
You know,
like I said, I think that,
you know what I mean?
I think that Tyron Woodley is obviously, you know, he's not a boxer, but he's a different level of fighter. Like, he is
shots.
And he's been there. Like, Ben Askren, again, He's a fighter, but he's never. I don't want to say he's never been there, but like he's never been in that type of fight. Really, like he's just like what Woodley's been in. He's a championship level fighter, one of the best fighters in the history of the UFC in terms of the welterweight division, and he's one of those dudes. So I think that he's got the skill, he's got the physical, the looks, and he's got the physical capabilities to like really step on Jake Paul's toes like right from the beginning. Whereas like you saw Ben Askren step in, he looked like a fucking milk sack. Like Woodley's gonna come in, he's gonna be jacked, he's gonna have the speed. And Woodley, and I still think people underestimate them because I think half of these people never actually like really watched Tyron Woodley besides like the last, maybe 2 or 3 fights of his career. But he's fast. Like he is a fast fucker. He's got some fast hands and he throws bombs. And like it's just that right there that he throws bombs. And like you can talk about the other end, you can say that Jake Paul's like good and whatnot, but like Woodley throws bombs. He's just as big. He's definitely faster. He's definitely stronger. The thing is going to come down to is Jake Paul, just technically more I'm not even going to say gifted, technically better at boxing than Tyron Woodley because Tyron spent his whole life in MMA.
Yeah. My answer is I don't think so. I don't think he's technically better, even though Tyron Woodley is not great at throwing punches. Like again, technique wise, like he can throw heavy shots. He can knock a dude out. That's for sure. But technique wise, in terms of boxing, like obviously he's not polished. I think he's never done this before. But the thing is that at least Tyron Woodley is a guy who has been in situations where he's had heavy shots thrown at him. And again, he just like every other guy in the MMA doesn't move his head.
Yeah.
But at least he's aware of it. And even if he does use the high guard, at least he has an awareness of how to defend himself. Yeah. Where no one that Jake Paul's been in there with before has known how to do that.
And that's right.
And unless Jake Paul knocks him out with the first shot, Woodley is going to return fire. Mm-hmm. That's something that Jake Paul has not had to deal with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Someone returning fire. And Jake Paul only throws a 1 and a 2, and a very ugly looking 2. And he looks at the ground when he does it. So, I forget. Who's Woodley training with though?
He's been training with. He trained with Floyd for a little bit.
Yeah, but who's he? Listen, if they got him, if Woodley can just throw a decent boxing uppercut and not an MMA uppercut, he can put him out real quick. I think. I see him getting him out real quick. If he just land one or 2 uppercuts when he comes in and throws that shot, and he's looking down and he comes underneath, I think he can get him out of there quick.
I don't know. I'm trying to look right now. Obviously, everything is coming up as Mayweather. I feel like it might be on his Instagram, but I don't see. I don't see anything about who he's actually training with.
Yeah, I forget. I just saw. Again, I was watching a little bit of the All Access, and I forgot. But it's a real boxing guy. It's someone who's been around. It's a big name. It's someone who's been around for a while. I don't know. I'm having like a brain fart. But here's the thing. Again, Tyron Woodley is not a polished boxer. He's never done this before. But because Jake Paul is new to it and he's sloppy and stiff, you don't need a whole lot to take what you know about fighting in the MMA and do enough to know how to throw a couple of clean shots, a couple of nice counters. Like I think that's possible that in this amount of time that he's had training, that Woodley can learn how to throw a few shots correctly to counter some of Jake Paul's really terrible, ugly, wild shots.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, look, I think it's gonna be a knockout. I think Woodley's gonna knock him out, and I think he's gonna knock him out early.
I just at worst case, I hope he fucking knocks him down once. I think that if Jake gets knocked down at least once, I think I just want to see the kid suffer for a little bit. I need to see this kid like get.
I think he's gonna put him to sleep. Look, again, with Woodley not being a boxer, not knowing how to move his head, I could definitely see a scenario in which Paul lands that heavy right hand and puts Woodley to sleep. But I'm counting on the odds are in Woodley's favor because
I know this for a fact.
I think he's gonna be able to defend more of those shots, and
Yeah.
he's gonna land more of his own.
Yeah.
So I think the odds are in his
And
favor.
I think I said this about Askren, but I was wrong. But I've seen Woodley take those shots. Like I've truly seen Woodley take those shots, and like you said, give them back.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference. And Askren, no matter what, wasn't going to have the output or the power to really do anything. Whereas Woodley has both, and he's taken those shots and given it back, like you said, with return fire.
And if you look back at the Nate Robinson fight, like as ugly as Nate Robinson was throwing shots, some of those shots got in there.
Yeah.
And Jake Paul's defense is non-existent.
Yeah.
Again, he's like, I was watching him jump rope. His hips and his knees he looked like a robot.
Yeah.
I was like, and this guy thinks he's good. This guy really thinks he's good. He's so stiff. So I just think it's a numbers thing. I just think Woodley, the odds are in favor of him landing more shots, and the shots that he lands are gonna be more effective.
Yeah.
I think he's gonna knock him out early, man. Like within the first few rounds, to be honest with you.
All right. I'm gonna go with Tyron Woodley. Third round, TKO. I hope he fucking flatlines the guy, but
I don't know. I don't know what the odds are in Vegas, but there is no fucking way this is going a full 10 or 12 rounds or whatever the fuck. There's no neither of these guys have the gas to really box for more than like 5 or 6 rounds. Neither of them. I don't care how athletic Woodley is. It's a different animal. This dude is not in there throwing punches and bouncing around on his toes for more than 5, 6 rounds. No way. So somebody's getting knocked the fuck out. And I think it's going to be.
I gotta see. Let's see if it's on here. Boxing odds. All right, so here we go. Woodley is a plus 155. Jake Paul is minus 190. So we got. That's some betting odds. All right, so Woodley versus Paul, when will the fight end? Round 1 is 450. These are plus, by the way. Round 2 is 450. Round 3 is 450. Round 4 is 550. Round 5 is 700. Round 6 is 900. Round 7 is 1200. Round 8 is 1800. The fight goes the distance is plus 600, which doesn't really make sense. Let's see. Jake Paul to win in rounds 1 and 2 is plus 300. Woodley to win in round 1 and 2 is plus 650. Damn. Trying to see what else there is. Woodley by KO, TKO, or DQ, plus 175. Paul by KO, TKO, or DQ is minus 165. So they think he's going to knock him out.
Yeah, but those are very close. Like that's pretty close to being even. I mean, minus 165 is not a huge favorite.
But it's big enough in this to say that Woodley's they do think they think Paul is going to knock him out, and they think it's going to be in the first 3 rounds.
Yeah.
Actually, I think the first 2 rounds. So.
But here's the thing. This is the way that it works. All that means is that all the money is being put on Jake Paul.
Yeah.
That's all that means.
Yeah.
And who's the more popular person? Who has the fan base that's probably put money on? Jake Paul.
I'd be interested. I'm going to look back.
And that's the thing, though. You can almost I'd be interested to see how much what is the biggest bet put on Jake Paul and how much money is being put on Paul. Because that'll tell you what the numbers really look like. Because he's not that big of a favorite, and that just tells you that the money is being put on him.
I'm interested to see what Friday night comes around, what those odds look like. Because I feel like there'll be a heavy. Because I feel like this is going to be a fight because even when I saw this fight, and I'm paying attention each week, and I think, I saw this fight and I was like, oh shit, that's this weekend. So like, I think that's going to be a fight that like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, as the hype builds a little bit, it's going to be like, oh shit, that fight's this weekend. There's going to be a lot of MMA guys and a lot of bettors who see that plus money on Woodley, and they're going to be like, oh, okay. So I'm interested to see how that ends up.
I would venture to guess that the numbers will even out a little more, because I think people are going to see that like, oh my God, look at the money I could win if I bet on Woodley.
Yeah.
And a lot of money is going to be put on Woodley. So I think those numbers are going to even out. And again, because it's so close, that tells you that Vegas themselves, whatever it opened up at, was probably pretty close to even.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see what the hell happens.
Woodley is knocking that dude out, man. Like if I had a bunch of money to put on, I'd put a bunch of money on. There's no way Jake Paul is getting out of here.
Yeah.
Alive. He's getting fucked up.
He better at least walk out with something broken. That's all I want to say. But that's it for this week. I don't think there's anything else, right? No other boxing?
No.
So that's it for this week. The big fight of the weekend, Paul versus Woodley. We're both saying knockouts. I said, what'd you say? Second round?
Within 3 rounds.
Within 3 rounds. I'm going to go with the third round. I'll just give it a specific one. Then we got Edson Barbosa. I'm going with a unanimous decision. And so again, any fighters, any fights, anything upcoming?
Wait, we're forgetting the biggest, most important bit of information is that Canelo and November 6th.
November 6th, Canelo Alvarez, Caleb Plant.
Undisputed. Canelo officially becomes the undisputed super middleweight champion of the world. So.
Essentially. I had a couple conversations with some people. They think Caleb's got a chance. I think no such thing.
Well, I can tell you, I don't know who you were talking to, and no disrespect to them, but they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. If you bring them on the fucking podcast, I'll let them know.
I think that Caleb's just not, he hasn't fought anybody. That's it. He just hasn't fought anybody, at least. And no matter what, even if he did, he didn't fight anybody on Canelo's level. He looked like shit his last fight.
The experience isn't there, and he has not. Again, I said this to my partner the other day. I don't know. No one knows if he fights up, if he performs up to the level of his competition. But we do know that he performs down to the level of his competition.
Yep.
And the reason we don't know if he performs up is because he's fought nothing but bums.
Yeah.
And we know for a fact that Canelo brings it when he's supposed to bring it. Caleb Plant tends to take his foot off the gas at pivotal moments of the fight. And when he does that, he's going to get fucking rocked. And that's the thing. I've seen Caleb Plant get touched up by dudes that shouldn't be touching him. So
just going to say that. If he makes the mistakes he made last fight, his face is going to be, he's going to be face first, ass up on the fucking canvas. Yeah. And it's not going to look pretty.
Listen, my early prediction, and I'm going to say this now because, again, we're a couple months away. I don't think it's going to change. But I'm going Canelo in a 7th round knockout. Like, that's my early prediction right now. And we'll see how much it changes in a couple months. But I want to be on record saying that.
Yeah, we're gonna have it on record.
Is not surviving this.
Yeah, I don't think he's gonna make it through either. I think he gets touched too much, but we'll get there. We'll watch some of the training. We'll see the lead up, what goes on.
We'll get all hyped.
Yeah, we'll get all hyped and we'll talk about it.
But we'll hear all these analysts talk about who Caleb Plant is going to win. Chris Mannix is probably going to have. Look at Chris Mannix is probably going to have the fucking fight scored for Caleb Plant before they even start the fight.
I know, he's probably already got a couple points for Caleb Plant. Every round or every training video he sees, he's going to add a couple more. Like,
we're going to have any more celebrity fights. Like, let's get Chris Mannix in there and get beat up by somebody. I hate his face.
Yeah, there's a fucking Lamar Odom's fighting again soon. Oh, it's so stupid. The celebrity boxing shit is unreal. But if there's any other fighters, real fighters that you want us to watch, we don't want any of that fake shit. Let us know. Any fights, check them out. We'll do what we got to do. We'll see you guys next week. Peace.
Peace.